It started with a simple question I never asked. What happens when the truth is staring you in the face, but you refuse to see it? The answer? You spiral into a nightmare where every quiet moment, every secret glance, becomes a test of your own sanity. I had no reason to suspect anything. Not at first. In fact, I used to think my life was pretty ordinary. The kind of life where you don't look twice at anything out of the ordinary. But one day, I found something that set off a chain of events I couldn't control, and I'll never forget how the world felt different after that day. I've always been a bit of a pushover. I admit it. My friends would tell you the same. Sam's too nice to notice when things aren't right. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the truth doesn't need permission to come out. It just happens. And it happened in a way that knocked me off my feet. I was cleaning out the drawer in the kitchen one afternoon, the one where we throw all the random receipts and old junk, when I came across an envelope. It wasn't like the usual pile of random stuff. It was neatly tucked behind a stack of old bills, almost as if someone had intentionally placed it there, out of sight. I didn't recognize the handwriting on the front, and my curiosity got the best of me. Inside, there were photos. Dozens of them. Photos of my wife, Layla, but not the Layla I thought I knew. These weren't candid shots of her enjoying a weekend getaway or at a family event. These were intimate, personal pictures of her with someone I didn't recognize. They weren't grainy or blurry, either. These were high-quality images, taken with someone who knew what they were doing. They looked like they had been taken recently, and each one left me feeling more and more sick as I flipped through them. I couldn't breathe. The images were of her and this man, sharing quiet moments, touching each other in ways that weren't normal between friends. At first, I thought I must have been imagining it, but as I looked at each photo, the evidence was undeniable. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing, and I couldn't figure out how to process what I was seeing. I had to know who this man was. I had to know what was going on. I sat there for hours, just staring at the photos. I didn't even know what to do. I kept thinking, why would she do this to me? Layla had always been kind and loving, always there for me. But these photos painted a completely different story. I thought about confronting her right away, but the truth was too painful. I wasn't ready. Part of me still couldn't believe that my life was about to fall apart, that everything I had trusted for the past 5 years could have been a lie. So, I made a decision. I would wait. I would watch. I would figure out what was really going on, piece by piece. The next few days felt like a blur. I started paying closer attention to her behavior. She was still acting the same on the surface, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on underneath it all. Her late nights out with friends, the cryptic phone calls that she'd abruptly end when I walked into the room. It was all starting to make sense now, even though I didn't want it to. I had to confront her, but when? How? I decided that I couldn't just live in ignorance anymore. I had to know if I was just paranoid or if there was something more to this story. I started keeping an eye on her every move, looking for any sign of the truth that I had been avoiding. The moment I found it, I couldn't unsee it. One evening, she told me she had to go meet a friend for dinner. She'd said it in such a casual way, like it was no big deal, but I knew better. I didn't want to follow her, but I couldn't shake the urge to see for myself. I grabbed my coat, stepped outside, and watched as she left, my heart in my throat. She didn't go to her usual spot, the little cafe downtown that she and I used to go to. Instead, she turned down a side street I didn't recognize. My curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't just sit there. I followed her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted movie, with the script written just for me. I followed her down the road until she parked in front of an apartment building I didn't recognize. My pulse was racing, and I felt a lump in my throat. My mind was screaming at me to turn around, but my feet kept moving. I watched as she got out of the car and walked into the building, a man waiting at the door for her. That was the moment when everything changed. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. I didn't need to see anything more. My mind was already playing out the worst-case scenario. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. My life was never going to be the same again. I stood frozen for a moment, my mind racing. There was no turning back now. I had followed her all the way here, and now I was watching her walk into a building with some man I didn't recognize. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't know if I should keep watching or just leave. The moment felt like a nightmare, but I couldn't tear myself away. I wasn't ready to confront her. I wasn't sure I could handle the truth yet, but I had to know what was happening. I waited for what felt like hours, my mind replaying every detail of the past few months. The late nights, the secrecy, the distance that had slowly crept between us. I thought I was being paranoid, but now I wasn't so sure. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, something innocent, but the images I had seen earlier, the photos, kept flashing through my mind. The way they looked at each other, the way they touched, the chemistry that was undeniable. I knew it wasn't just a coincidence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw the man leave the building. He walked out with a confident stride, looking like he had no care in the world. I couldn't see his face clearly from the car, but I could tell by his posture that he wasn't just a random acquaintance. The way he carried himself was too familiar, too comfortable. He didn't even look around, as if he had nothing to hide. I watched as he walked to his car, casually glancing at his phone. Then he drove off, leaving me sitting there, unable to move. What the hell had just happened? I was about to get my answer, but I still didn't know how to approach her. Should I confront her right now? What would I even say? My mind was clouded with doubt, but the need for answers burned so intensely that I couldn't ignore it. I waited a little longer, hoping she'd come out, but when she finally did, it was as if the world had slowed down. Layla stepped out of the building, looking carefree, almost as if nothing had happened. She didn't even notice me. She walked to her car, smiling to herself. A smile that was so unfamiliar, so different from the one she used to give me. It wasn't the smile of a woman who had just spent time with her husband or even a close friend. It was something else, something that made my blood run cold. I felt a surge of anger, but I didn't move. I stayed where I was, hidden in the shadows, watching her drive away without a second thought. The rage inside me was building, but I had to keep my composure. I wasn't going to lose my cool. Not yet. I needed to be smart about this. I had to know everything before I confronted her. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. My mind kept racing, replaying the images, the smiles, the way they looked at each other. I tried to act normal, tried to pretend like nothing had changed, but every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who had betrayed me. I wanted to yell at her, to demand the truth, but I held back. I told myself I needed more evidence. I needed to know everything before I could make any decisions. If she was lying to me, I wasn't going to just let it slide. I wasn't the kind of guy to take this lying down. Then, one day, I got my chance. I came home earlier than usual and found Layla's phone lying on the kitchen counter. She wasn't in the house, and I didn't even think twice before picking it up. Her password was the same one it had always been, and I quickly unlocked it. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but at this point, I didn't care. I had to know the truth. I started scrolling through her messages, trying to find something that would explain the last few weeks. I found texts between her and the same man from the photos, the one I'd seen her with the other night. They were exchanging private messages, joking about things I didn't understand. It was clear from their conversations that they weren't just friends. They were something more. I felt my heart drop into my stomach as I scrolled through more texts. She had been lying to me. All along, she had been hiding this from me. But what hurt the most was the realization that I had been so blind, so trusting, while she was living this double life. I needed to know more, so I dug deeper. I found pictures, more recent ones, of them together, looking as happy as can be. I could see her face, smiling, in a way that I hadn't seen in months. She was happy, but it wasn't with me. It was with him. The anger inside me was now a fire, burning hotter with each new revelation. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had no idea what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed to be strategic. I had to confront her with everything, with the evidence, so there was no way for her to deny it. I wasn't going to let her lie to me any longer. I sat there, staring at the phone, trying to steady my breathing. My mind was racing, and I couldn't stop thinking about the man who had come into my life, uninvited, and ruined everything. I had been living a lie, but that was about to end. I was going to get my answers, and she was going to have to explain everything. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. The days that followed were a blur. My life, which had once been predictable and safe, had shifted into a whirlwind of doubt and anger. I couldn't stop thinking about the messages, the pictures, and the undeniable truth that my wife, Layla, had been lying to me for who knows how long. Every time I looked at her, my mind screamed liar. The woman I thought I knew was slipping away from me, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But what hurt the most wasn't the betrayal. It was the fact that she had done it with such ease, hiding it in plain sight. She had been lying to my face for months, and I had been too trusting to notice. But I couldn't confront her just yet. I needed more than just texts and photos. I needed to hear it from her. I needed to know how deep this affair went, how long it had been going on, and why she'd been doing this to me. I couldn't just ask her, though. No, I had to be smarter than that. If she was lying to me, I wasn't going to give her the chance to twist the truth. I needed evidence, something concrete, something that would leave no room for her to deny it. So I waited. I watched. I followed her every move, even more closely than before. I had to know everything before I said anything. I was preparing for the confrontation, for the moment when I would finally demand the truth, when I would finally stop pretending everything was fine. And then it happened. One evening, I came home early from work, determined to get everything ready for the showdown I'd been planning in my head. I had to have the upper hand. But when I walked into our living room, I was greeted by a sight I wasn't prepared for. Layla was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and swollen, as though she had been crying for hours. My heart sank into my stomach. I didn't know what to make of it. Was she guilty? Was she finally feeling remorse? Or was this another act in her twisted game? "Sam, we need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was like she knew what was coming, like she was trying to get ahead of me before I had the chance to confront her. But I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. No, I had been holding back for too long. It was my turn to take control of this conversation. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, my voice calm but steely. I could feel my anger simmering beneath the surface, but I forced myself to stay composed. I had waited too long to lose my cool now. This was it. This was the moment I had been building up to. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. For a moment, I thought she might actually confess, that she might break down and beg for forgiveness. But instead, she shook her head, wiping away a tear. "I don't know how to tell you this," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been seeing someone else." The words hit me like a freight train. My chest tightened, and I could barely breathe. It wasn't a surprise, not really. But hearing it out loud, hearing her say it with such quiet resignation, made everything real in a way I hadn't been prepared for. All the signs, all the suspicion, all the doubt, it had all led to this moment. And now, I had to deal with it. "Who?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear the answer. Part of me hoped she would just say it was a mistake, that she hadn't meant it, that it hadn't meant anything. But I knew better. I had already seen the photos, the messages, the evidence that proved it was much more than just a fling. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of shame and guilt. "His name is Ben. I've been seeing him for the last few months. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did." I couldn't breathe. Ben. The name meant nothing to me. But hearing her say it made everything feel like a punch to the gut. She had been seeing someone else, someone she had kept secret from me. Someone who had been getting all the things I thought I was giving her: attention, affection, intimacy. And now, she was telling me, like it was just another casual conversation. Like she hadn't just shattered everything I believed in. I stood there in silence for a moment, trying to process what she had just said. My mind was spinning. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? And yet, as much as I hated her for it, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to know more. I needed to know everything. The details, the truth, every little thing that had been hidden from me. "Why?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "Why did you do it?" She wiped her eyes again, taking a deep breath. "I don't know, Sam. I felt like something was missing in our relationship. I don't know how it happened, but it did. And I'm sorry. I am. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can fix it." Her words stung more than I could have imagined. She wasn't even sorry for what she'd done. She wasn't begging me to forgive her. She wasn't even fighting for us. It was like she had already made her peace with the fact that our marriage was over. I took a step back, trying to steady my breathing. I could feel my world crumbling around me. I had trusted her, believed in her, loved her. And now, it seemed like all of that had been for nothing. She was standing there, telling me she didn't know if she could fix it, as if this was just some mistake that could be swept under the rug. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without getting the answers I needed. not without knowing the full extent of her betrayal. I wasn't going to let her take the easy way out. Layla, I said, my voice cold and controlled. You think I'm just going to walk away from this? You think I'm going to let you tear apart everything we've built without knowing everything? She looked at me, her face pale. What do you mean? I want to know everything, I said. I want to know exactly how long this has been going on, how serious it is, and why you kept it from me for so long. I'm done being in the dark. She didn't answer right away. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to decide if she should keep up the act or come clean. But I wasn't going to let her drag this out any longer. Now, I demanded, my voice sharp. Tell me everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. Layla stood there, staring at me with wide, uncertain eyes. Her breath came in short bursts, as if she were trying to process the weight of my words. I could feel the tension between us, thick and palpable. For a moment, she looked like she might break down, might apologize for everything and beg me to forgive her. But instead, she simply lowered her gaze, biting her lip as if she were contemplating whether to tell me the whole truth or hold back. I felt a fire burning inside me, a mixture of fury and sadness, like a storm raging in my chest. I had never imagined this day would come. I had spent so many years trusting her, loving her, only for it to all come crashing down in an instant. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let her see me break. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I don't know where to start, she whispered, her voice trembling. Start with the truth. I shot back, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. I wasn't going to let her off easy. I needed to hear it all. I needed to understand the extent of her betrayal, to know what had driven her to this point. The questions in my mind were relentless. How long had this been going on? How deep was it? And most of all, why had she lied to me for so long? She took a shaky breath and began to speak, her words slow and hesitant at first. It started a few months ago, just before I started going to the gym more. I met Ben at work. He was just a colleague at first, but we started talking more and things got complicated. I didn't mean for it to happen. I really didn't. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like I wasn't enough for you anymore. Her eyes finally met mine, and for the first time, I saw something resembling guilt in her expression. I don't know how to explain it, Sam. You changed. You weren't the man I fell in love with. I didn't feel like you cared about me the way you used to. And Ben, he was there. He listened to me. He made me feel seen, like I wasn't invisible. Her words stung, but they didn't surprise me. The signs had been there all along. The distance, the secrecy, it all pointed to the same conclusion. But hearing her admit it, hearing her lay it out so plainly, was like a punch to the gut. She was blaming me, too. She was telling me that I had pushed her away, that it was my fault she had strayed. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying to keep my emotions in check. So, you didn't think to come to me and talk about it? You didn't think to tell me that something was wrong? My voice was low, controlled, but underneath it, I could feel the anger rising. Instead, you go behind my back and sleep with another man. She flinched at my words, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to say it. I had to make her understand how much this hurt, how much it tore me apart to know that the woman I had trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. I didn't want to hurt you, Sam, she whispered. I never wanted this to happen. I thought I was doing something wrong, that I was being selfish for wanting more, but it just happened. And now I'm trapped in this mess. I don't know how to fix it. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't ready to feel sorry for her. Not yet. Not when I still felt like the rug had been ripped out from under me. So what now? I asked, my voice dripping with bitterness. Are you going to keep seeing him? Is that what this is? Am I just supposed to accept that you've moved on and that I'm nothing but a side note in your life? I don't know, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what I want anymore, Sam. I don't even know what's real anymore. I could feel my chest tightening, the weight of everything we had built together threatening to crush me. All the years, all the memories, they suddenly felt meaningless. I had given her everything, and she had thrown it all away for a man I didn't even know. It felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies, and I didn't know how to escape. Do you still love him? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. The question hung in the air between us, thick with tension. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at me, as if she were weighing her words carefully. I don't know, she finally said, her voice barely audible. I don't know what love is anymore. The honesty in her voice was almost worse than anything else. She was admitting it. She didn't know if she loved me anymore. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about a relationship that had slowly been falling apart, piece by piece, without either of us noticing. I stood there, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix this. And for the first time in years, I felt utterly lost. Layla was right about one thing. Everything had changed, but not in the way she thought. I wasn't the man who had failed her. I wasn't the one who had let her down. No, that role belonged to her. And now, as I stood there in the silence of our broken home, I realized that this was the end. The end of a chapter one had never seen coming. The end of everything I thought I knew. The room was suffocating now. Each breath I took felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of her words had filled the air like a dense fog, choking the life out of me. Layla stood before me, her shoulders slumped, her eyes still red from crying, but I could no longer bring myself to feel sympathy for her. I wasn't sure I could even look at her the same way again. The trust one had placed in her, the love I had thought we shared, it was all crumbling before my eyes, shattered by a few words, a few admissions that I could never unhear. I don't know if I can forgive you, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. My own words stung, and they felt foreign coming from my mouth. I had never imagined I'd be the one to say them. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way after this. She flinched at the sound of my voice, like I had physically struck her. And maybe in a way, I had. Because this was a blow that went far deeper than anything physical could. I had given everything to her, and in return, she had given me lies, deceit, and betrayal. I didn't want to hurt you, Sam, she said again, her voice cracking as if she were trying to hold on to the last shred of remorse. I never meant for any of this to happen. Her words were hollow now, meaningless. They felt like the rehearsed lines of someone who knew they were in trouble, someone who was trying to save themselves. She was sorry, but not for the right reasons. She was sorry because she had been caught, sorry because the reality of the situation was sinking in, and now she was desperate to hold on to whatever piece of this relationship she could salvage. You didn't mean for it to happen? I scoffed, disbelief flooding my veins. You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around behind my back. You didn't mean for it to happen? My voice was rising now, the anger and hurt spilling out in ways I couldn't control. I stepped closer to her, my words sharp and cutting. You think I'm just supposed to believe that? That this is some accident? Some mistake that just happened? She took a step back, as though my words were too much for her to bear. But I didn't care anymore. I needed her to feel this. I needed her to understand how deep this had cut me. Who is he? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside of me. Who has been to you? Was this just some fling? Or was it something more? She didn't answer immediately. For a long moment, we stood there, her gaze avoiding mine, her hands trembling by her sides. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible, tinged with regret. It wasn't just about him, she said quietly. It was about me, too. I lost myself, Sam. I stopped feeling like I was enough. And Ben, he made me feel seen. For the first time in a long time, he made me feel like I was someone worth paying attention to. It wasn't just physical attraction, Sam. It was everything. The way he listened, the way he looked at me, like I was still something to be desired. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't look away. The truth, as painful as it was, needed to be said. But it wasn't just about Ben. It was about her. It was about the fact that she had let herself slip so far that she felt she needed to be with someone else to feel valued. I clenched my fists, fighting back the urge to yell at her, to demand that she explain herself further. But I held my ground, forcing myself to remain calm. So you just gave up on us? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, filled with disbelief. You just decided that because I wasn't perfect, it was okay to betray me? You think that's how relationships work? She shook her head, her eyes filled with shame. No, Sam. I didn't give up. I don't know. I made a choice, and now I regret it. I never meant to hurt you, but I did, and I don't know if there's any way to fix it. Her words, her sorrow, it all felt so empty. She wasn't fighting for me. She wasn't fighting for us. She had already made her decision. And now, she was asking for forgiveness without fully understanding the magnitude of what she had done. I turned away, pacing back and forth, trying to collect my thoughts. But there was no clarity. There was only the overwhelming sense of betrayal that consumed me. The thought that I had been blind to this for so long, the thought that I had been living in a lie, made me feel sick. "Do you still love him?" I asked, my voice steady but the question heavy. The answer was clear to me, but I needed to hear it. I needed to hear her admit it. She didn't look at me as she answered. "I don't know," she said softly. "I don't know if I love him. But I do know that I'm lost right now. I don't know who I am anymore, Sam. And I don't know if I can find my way back." Her words echoed in my mind, and I felt a pang of something deep in my chest, a mix of anger, sadness, and frustration. How could she not know? How could she not know the damage she had caused? How could she stand there and tell me that she was lost when all I wanted was for her to choose me, to choose us? I turned to face her again, my heart pounding in my chest. "You don't know who you are anymore?" "Well, I know who I am, and I know that I can't live in this lie anymore. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. I deserve better than this." She opened her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. She just stood there, her eyes searching mine, as if waiting for me to tell her what to do, how to fix things. But it was too late. I wasn't the one who needed to fix things. She had to fix herself first. She had to figure out who she wanted to be, with or without me. "I can't do this anymore, Layla," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't keep pretending like we're okay when I'm suffocating under this weight." Her face fell, and for the first time, I saw the fear in her eyes. But it was too late for that. The damage had been done, and no amount of apologies or tears could undo what had already been broken. "I'm done," I whispered, and for the first time in months, I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, a woman lost in the wreckage of her own choices. The moment I walked out of that room, it felt like I was stepping into an entirely different world. The weight that had been pressing down on my chest for months, maybe even years, suddenly lifted. But it wasn't relief, not really. It was numbness. I had walked out on everything I thought I knew, everything I had worked so hard to build. But there was no turning back now. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't erase the image of her with him, the hollow words of apology that didn't mean a thing. And I couldn't forget the betrayal that had turned my life upside down. I didn't know what to do next. My mind was racing, but nothing seemed to make sense. I grabbed my jacket from the hallway and stepped out into the cool night air, hoping the chill would clear my head. But it didn't. All it did was amplify the emptiness I felt inside. I had spent so many years loving her, trusting her, and now it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I had no idea who I was anymore, no idea who we were. I walked aimlessly, my footsteps echoing in the quiet night. The city was alive around me, bustling with people who had no idea what was happening inside my head. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but all I could do was walk. There was so much anger inside of me, so much pain that I didn't know where to put it. I couldn't go back to the apartment, not yet. Not until I had a moment to breathe, to figure out what came next. As I wandered through the streets, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first, but then it buzzed again, and then again. Something told me it was her. I pulled the phone out, and sure enough, there were 3 messages from Layla, each more desperate than the last. "Please, Sam. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm lost without you. Can we talk? Please. I need to explain. I need to fix this." I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to let her explain, to hear her out. But another part of me knew better. There was nothing she could say that would undo what she had done. There was no magic word, no apology that could heal this kind of wound. I had already given her every chance to come clean, and now it was too late. I stuffed the phone back into my pocket, making my way to a nearby park. I needed space, I needed time, but most of all, I needed answers. What did I do now? What did I want from her? Did I even want her back? Could I ever trust her again? I sat down on a bench in the park, the sound of distant traffic the only thing filling the silence around me. My mind kept drifting back to the images I had seen, the photos, the texts, the evidence of her betrayal. I thought I knew her better than anyone, but now, I didn't even recognize the woman sitting in that room, telling me everything had been a mistake. She had torn our lives apart, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I glanced up at the night sky, the stars barely visible behind the glow of the city lights. I wished I could escape, Wished I could run far away from everything, from all the pain, from the life that had been turned upside down. But there was no escaping this. No matter how far I went, the truth would still be there, waiting for me. I pulled out my phone again, this time with the intention of turning it off, but then something caught my eye. A new notification, a missed call from my friend, Chris. I stared at the screen for a moment before deciding to answer. I needed someone to talk to, someone who didn't know about any of this. "Hey man," Chris said as soon as I answered, his voice calm, but with an edge of concern. "You good? You've been off the grid lately." "Not really," I muttered, leaning back against the bench. "Everything's falling apart, man. I don't even know where to begin." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Chris knew me better than anyone, and I could tell he was trying to choose his words carefully. "You want to talk about it?" he asked gently. "You know I'm here for you, right?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. The last thing I wanted to do was unload all of this onto him, but I couldn't keep it in anymore. I needed to say it out loud. "Layla," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "She's been cheating on me. For months. I found out tonight." Chris didn't say anything for a long time, and I could hear him processing the words in his head. Finally, he spoke again, his voice low. "Man, I'm so sorry. I know how much you loved her." "I still do," I replied quietly. "I still love her. But I don't know how to get past this. How do you come back from something like this?" "You don't, not really," Chris said bluntly. "You can either move on or keep living in the past. But you need to decide what's best for you." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to decide what was best for me. I couldn't keep clinging to the past, to the woman who had torn my world apart. I couldn't keep waiting for her to change, for her to come back and fix everything. I had to let go. But as I sat there, the night air cold against my skin, I realized that letting go was harder than I had ever imagined. How do you let go of someone you thought was your forever? How do you stop loving the person who was your world? I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. And there was no turning back now. The next few days were a blur, a whirlwind of emotions that I couldn't quite grasp. Each morning, I woke up hoping it had all been some nightmare, that I would open my eyes and everything would be normal again. But when I looked around, I was reminded of the cold, empty space beside me. Layla was gone, physically and emotionally. And no matter how much I tried to deny it, I couldn't escape the truth. Our life, the life I had known, was over. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, the way she had admitted to everything with such a blank expression. She said she was lost. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. But I didn't buy it. She wasn't lost. She was exactly where she wanted to be. With him. Ben, the man who had come into our life uninvited. Like a shadow I never saw creeping up behind me until it was too late. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at him, the way she touched him. How had I not seen it? How had I not noticed that she had checked out long before I did? All these years, I thought she was still the woman I married, the woman who loved me. But now I realized she had been living a double life, one that I had been too blind to see. The shame hit me hard, like a slap to the face. I should have seen it coming. The late nights, the odd behavior, the secret phone calls. I had ignored all the signs. And now, here I was, staring at the wreckage of everything I thought I knew. I tried to focus on work, tried to bury myself in the mundane tasks that had always kept me grounded. But it wasn't working. The weight of everything kept bearing down on me, and I felt suffocated by it all. I couldn't focus on anything. Every conversation with a colleague felt like a distraction from the storm inside me, from the chaos that had taken over my life. I could hear her voice in my head, the way she said she was sorry, the way she begged me to understand. But there was no understanding this. There was no rationalizing it. She had chosen him, and I was left to pick up the pieces. It wasn't until a week later that she reached out again. It was late in the evening when the message came through, her name lighting up my phone like a cruel reminder of everything I had lost. I stared at it for a long time before I even had the strength to open it. "Sam, I can't stop thinking about what I did. I know I've hurt you beyond repair. But please, I need to talk to you. We need closure. I can't keep living like this. Please, let me explain everything. I owe you that much." I felt a surge of anger flood through me, but also something else, something softer, something I didn't want to acknowledge. It was a feeling I hadn't let myself feel since that night. It was longing, a longing for the woman I once knew, the woman I thought I loved. It was pathetic, really. After everything she'd done, I was still clinging to the idea of her, to the hope that somehow we could go back. But deep down, I knew that was impossible. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think, to process what she was asking. Did I want closure? Did I need it? Part of me wanted to hear her out, to let her explain, to give her a chance to redeem herself, even though I knew she didn't deserve it. The other part of me, the part that was hurt and angry, wanted nothing more than to erase her from my life entirely. I didn't know her anything, not after what she did. I spent the entire night turning the phone over in my hands, unable to make up my mind. The next morning, I finally made a decision. I couldn't let her keep doing this to me. I couldn't keep holding on to a dream that was long gone. But I couldn't just ignore her either. Not when she was asking for something that, deep down, I knew I needed. I needed to hear her admit what she had done, to say it out loud, so I could finally move on. I typed my response slowly, the words feeling heavier with each keystroke. We can meet. But this is it. No more chances, no more hoping things will go back to the way they were. I need the truth. I need to hear everything, and then we'll both walk away. For good. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. I had made my choice. Now, there was no turning back. The following evening, we met at a cafe on the outskirts of town, a neutral ground where neither of us would have to face the walls of our shared apartment. I arrived early, sitting in a corner booth with my hands folded in front of me, the anticipation gnawing at my insides. I had no idea what she was going to say, but I knew one thing for sure. This would be the last time we spoke about it. The last time we tried to salvage something that was already broken beyond repair. When she walked in, I saw the same woman I had fallen in love with, but she seemed smaller somehow, as if the weight of everything that had happened had taken something from her. She looked just as lost as she had the night we talked, but there was something different about her this time, a quiet resolve, as if she had finally accepted the truth that she couldn't take back what she had done. She sat across from me, her hands folded on the table in front of her, her eyes avoiding mine at first. "Sam," she began, her voice shaky, "I don't know where to start. I know I've hurt you more than I could ever apologize for. But I need you to know that everything I did, it wasn't about you. It wasn't because of anything you did or didn't do. It was about me." I stared at her, waiting for the explanation that I knew wasn't going to make me feel any better. She had made her choices. She had gone down a path that left me in the dust, and no amount of words could fix it now. "It's not just that I made a mistake," she continued, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes. "It's that I was too afraid to admit that I was changing, that I wasn't the person I used to be. And instead of facing it, instead of talking to you, I ran. I let myself get caught up in someone else, someone who made me feel seen. But that's no excuse. I betrayed you, Sam. And I'm so sorry." I didn't know how to respond. Her words sounded sincere, but it was too late. She had already made her choices, and now there was no undoing the damage. I sat there in silence, absorbing everything she said, but knowing that nothing she said would change what had happened. Finally, I spoke, my voice cold, but steady. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Layla. I don't know if I even want to." I sat there in silence after my words left the air thick and heavy. Layla looked at me, her face a mixture of regret and sorrow. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, and for a moment, we both just sat there, consumed by the gravity of what had happened between us. The world around us felt distant, like we were in a bubble where nothing else existed except the wreckage of our broken relationship. But then, something shifted. She reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly as it hovered just above mine. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to, but I was still unsure if I could allow myself to trust her again. But this time, it wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It wasn't an apology laced with guilt. It was simply her, asking for one final chance to make things right, even if she didn't know how. "Sam," she said softly, her voice quieter now, but steady. "I can't fix what I've done, but I want to try. I want to rebuild, not just with you, but for myself too. I've spent so much time running, hiding from what I've become. But I want to face it now. I want to face everything, even if it means losing you. I owe it to myself, to you, to us, to try to be better. Not just for you, but because I'm not the person I was when I walked out on you." Her words hung in the air, raw and vulnerable, but there was something in her voice that struck me. It wasn't the pleading of someone desperate to salvage a relationship. It was the acceptance of someone who understood that redemption wasn't guaranteed. She wasn't asking me to forgive her in an instant. She was simply asking for the possibility, for a chance to rebuild, if I was willing. I sat back in my chair, closing my eyes for a brief moment, letting the silence wash over me. A part of me wanted to scream that it was too late, that I could never trust her again. But another part of me, the part that still cared about her, the part that remembered the good times, told me that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. When I opened my eyes, I saw Layla, waiting, hoping, uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, I saw her as more than just the woman who had betrayed me. I saw her as a person, flawed but willing to grow, willing to change, and that small spark of hope flickered in me again. I don't know if we can ever go back, I said, my voice softer now, but filled with honesty. I don't know if I can forget what happened, or if I even should, but I do know that we both deserve to figure this out. Together. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to take time, Layla. Time to rebuild trust, time to figure out what we want. But I'm willing to try, if you are. Her eyes filled with a mix of relief and hope, and for the first time, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. The woman who wasn't perfect, but who was willing to face her mistakes head on. It wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't the happily ever after I once dreamed of, but it was a start. And maybe that was all we needed. She reached for my hand then, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I let her take it, feeling the warmth of her touch. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't even know where this was going. But for the first time in a long while, I felt the tiniest bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to something real. It wasn't going to be easy. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, questions, and doubts, but at least we were willing to walk it together. We sat there for a long while, just holding hands, letting the silence speak for us. It wasn't a perfect moment, but it was the beginning of something new. Something that was still broken, but maybe, just maybe, capable of being healed. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility of a second chance.